The front lever planche straight arm strength workout is a great complementary workout where you're doing a straight arm pull position and a straight arm push. Now with the gymnastic strength workouts, they are move 3, so they're not a priority in the week if you're training less frequently. If you do have a training program where you're training most days and you've got that diversity and you want to include them, and that's great. And if you want to develop these, I'd highly recommend putting them in at least once a week. If you wanted to develop faster, you could do 2 of these a week, but you might want to do planche push-up style movements and then front lever pull type movements on one of the workouts, because you're getting a dynamic bent arm workout at the same time. The straight arm strength component is very heavy on the connective tissue, so it does take time to develop. So it's not something you want to rush and really force. You want to make sure you've got good form and that you are diligent with your time under tension and taking note of that, because the rate of change, once you've kind of had that initial adaptation from starting it, the rate of change is quite slow, so they can be quite frustrating. So you've got to be quite diligent. They are positions that you do want to film, because it's very hard to feel the exact position you're in, and it's also important because the improvements are often quite minor. You've got to make sure you're using a timer for that time under tension and using a camera from the side to see the angles and the positions and the scapular position, because that's what's going to give you feedback as to if you're improving over time. So if you are doing it once a week, then yeah, definitely film it with a straight arm version, and then if you want to progress it further, my recommendation is to do a bent arm version of it a second time, just to save time, just to look at the overall loading that you get in the week. You could do it twice, but you might want to, in order to get enough recovery, it might kind of push into other workouts a bit too much. Let's have a look at the basic positions. So for the front lever, it's holding that body horizontal. Now when you're starting out, you just want to get that nice scapular control. So you want to set the rings up where you can keep the feet on the ground. If you are quite strong, you can progress a lot faster, but we'll go through the basics first. So you're just coming up and just getting a nice scapular retraction. So you're retracting the scapula and depressing it, keeping the hips up with it's on and getting a hold. Now with gymnastic strength, I try and get people to change once a month or every 2 months, and they might do a combination of isometric, dynamic and eccentric, or you might just stick to one for a period and then change to another. Usually, even if you're doing isometric, you want to pull yourself into it as much as you can and lower yourself out of it, so you get that eccentric. But doing the 3 reps dynamically is very heavy for a lot of the positions. So for example, an easy version here with the feet on the ground dynamic would look like this: coming up, pulling, and then coming down and lowering down. Then if you were doing isometric, you'd just be getting that hold. And this is usually a good way to start, so you get that awareness of the shoulder blade and what position it's in, because you really want that retraction and depression. So it's pulling down. Once you've got that down and you can hold, for a decent amount of time, you might want to get up into inverted holds. So you're just doing the inversion. So this is quite easy. It's just grip strength and just getting those shoulder blades down and back and lowering. You don't have to lower too far. You might even just be on a slight angle before you get to 90 degrees and come down. Once you're kind of working on that, it's a bit better to have the rings raised up a bit higher, so that way you can lower down from a higher position. Now before we do that, let's have a look at the basic planche drills to get started. So you might do, say you're just doing the basic isometric hold with the legs bent and just trying to get that 30 seconds. Then you would go into either a rest, where you can just chill for a bit for 30 seconds, or you might want to go straight into a push. Just like with the upper body pull-push movements and integrating legs, if you're doing whole body, I tend to save time with my gymnastic strength workouts by putting my split front split, side split, or pancake work in between on my rests. I find that works quite well, or even just stretching the wrist the opposite way, especially for the planche. So here, when we're going into the planche, you want to get the reverse, so you're getting protraction instead of retraction. You still want to get protraction and slight depression, so you're lengthening out and leaning over. When you're starting, just doing that, just getting that control is really important, just to get that awareness and feel the serratus anterior protract the scapula around the rib cage. As you get better at it, then you can come into a bridge and doing that, so getting that position, and then you're starting to lean over and protract up. Now with the wrists, if that's too heavy at the beginning, you can turn the hands out to the side, or you can use parallettes or dumbbells. You do want to just take the time with the wrists and make sure you want to develop that position, and you've got to do those wrist mobility exercises, stretches and strengthening exercises on a daily basis to bring them up, because they do take time to get that connective tissue strength, and then usually once or twice a week when you're doing these, are just the stretches to do every day. But the strengthening exercises, the finger push-up, first knuckle, the extension and the wrist rocks, once a week, doing those with higher reps, and even doing some dumbbell work there on the forearms to improve that. So once you're kind of leaning over, if you find it's too strong, you can turn the fingers out, and you're just trying to develop that protraction with the lean. After that, you can start to bring the feet in and push up and work towards getting as much weight out of the feet as possible by getting a better lean. And this is where filming from the side is really important, to look at those angles and make sure that you're feeling strong there. So let's have a look at the next versions for the front lever. With both of them, you want to make sure you're mirroring your development. So you don't want to progress too far with one compared to the other, because otherwise what will happen is that you're going to get that imbalance of strength. Usually people have a dominance, so for me I'm stronger in a pull than a push, but I always want to try and make sure I work on both evenly and bring that up. Most people are usually stronger the other way, but everyone's kind of got their things to work on. Now, with this one here, an easy entry is just having that bent arm position and then just jumping back. But you do want to have those base versions down to start with before you progress to this, so that way you feel quite comfortable in the rings, you've got good grip strength. So here, just leaning back and coming upside down. So just getting that position, working those isometrics, or you might even be working dynamics where you're coming down, getting a dead hang, retract and pull. Now you want to get the basics down with this before you progress, and getting that nice tuck hold before you start to open up the body. And that's quite a heavy hold, even when you're doing a tight tuck for a full 30 seconds, especially if you're doing multiple sets. So if you're doing 3 to 5 sets or 4 sets, doing 30 seconds on that, 30-second rest, 30 seconds on the planche lean, and then having a 30-second rest and coming back. It gets quite challenging, but you want to develop that nice tissue tolerance in those positions. I haven't trained planche for quite a while. I've been doing rows more and doing just some light planche work, nothing too heavy. I did condition it quite far in the past, but I've injured myself, so I've had to rebuild it again. So I'm kind of on this journey with you as well, which is pretty cool. But again, just don't rush the process. You know, you want to make sure your forearms feel good, neck, shoulders, everything feels strong when you're doing it. Now, the position to progress is going from a tight tuck into an open tuck. Once you're in that nice straight open tuck, then you can start to bring the legs out or do a half lever. All these things will open up to you, and there's lots of variations you can do. But the key one I want everyone to develop at the beginning is just a nice tight tuck. and being able to keep the shoulders level with the hips, and then also be able to do those dynamic reps. If you've got that down at the beginning, it gives you a lot of control, gives you a good foundation to go further. If you rush the process and overload your elbows, your grip, your shoulders, your neck, it's not worth it if you kind of tweak something and you have to start all over. I've done enough times for everybody else to not have to do that. So with the band, really simple. Just want to have it set up so you get a decent amount of tension. Because it's a fairly static position, you can do dynamic with these, which is quite cool. But obviously if the band's pulling tighter, if it's shorter or longer, that assistance changes. So in this one, we're just going to work that isometric. That's what you want to develop at the beginning. So you want to get that band, put it down below the hips, and then from here, go into that same position that you were in before with the toes on the ground, and then you're going to start to work up and pull the heels into the butt and try and hold higher. And that's quite heavy. Again, if the wrists are challenged, you can turn the hands out like I did, or you can use parallettes, but you're really trying to get that nice protraction and get as high in that tuck as you can. And that's quite advanced for most people, getting that before you start to open the body up into an open tuck position. So getting those two 30 seconds on, 30 seconds off for 5 sets is pretty awesome. If you can work in 30 on front lever, 30 on the planche, and then going into say side split work on a 1.5 minute round, that's even more intense because you've got less rest. But you might want to do if you're working that planche position, you might want to go straight into a rest like that, and then use the time in between, if you're doing a 4-beat round in between the front lever and the planche, to do a side split. And that's quite good too. So get into those. I want to see video footage from the side for those, and depending on how I'm programming for you and where you're at, usually I like people to start up with isometric, then you want to go into some dynamic version to get a feel of how it moves through. If you're doing the hang handstand split warm up, doing plank to pikes, you're getting that kind of dynamic work there. When you're doing it here, it's much the same in that you're getting that position, but you just stay in a tuck. So your dynamic version, after you've got some isometric ones down, would just be to pike up, press, and then tuck down. So you're trying to keep as much weight in the hands as you can. It is hard to make it objective, but you want to try to keep that weight in the hands throughout, so it's more dynamic. Eccentric would be lowering down, so that one you could do where you kind of jump up in a handstand and lower yourself down. You can do it in the band, it is a little bit more awkward. Or in this one, where you'll come up, get as much weight out of the toes as you can, lean forward and try to get as much out of your toes coming down eccentrically. Again, it's hard to rate. One way you can do it is actually have the feet on scales so you can see how much weight's in there. If you've got scales that move dynamically, the electronic ones don't really work for it because usually they set and then they hold that weight, so even when you take some weight off, it doesn't change. But if you've got ones that are dynamic, it works quite well. But get into those, get some videos back to me, and we'll look at how that whole week is programmed together for you. And if you're using this and you're using Move 3 in your weekly program, then this is a great workout routine to do to develop that straight arm strength to work towards a full planche and a full front lever, which is a lot of work. You're looking at a lot of time under tension, a lot of work to get there. But if you're into it and you're up for it, I'm here to coach and here to help. See you soon.